that's the why, sounds a good enough reason to me. Let's signpost the what. Some of you will have already read some of this content, but I'll just outline it. There are some links at the bottom of the page you might want to look at if you have a bit more time. I'm going to whiz through this just because we haven't got that much time. But big, I guess we can visualize it, imagine it as the framework with which we get from purpose to vision to strategy and delivery. It talks about how we connect everything up. It's not trying to provide expertise in one particular domain. We've got people that can provide that expertise. We're just looking to connect it all up. And it spans across not just projects or not just programs or not just product creation or not just operations. We're looking to provide connection across business as usual, value creation and change. And that's quite different, I think. The body of knowledge itself has a rationale for big, so there's plenty of thought on the rationale for it and why you might bother. We offer some concepts to enable discussion, so we're clear on a common language we can use to discuss this with. Principles to help us engage our stakeholders in what's good and what's bad. So rather than being accusatory and pointing holes, if we discuss principles, we can agree that there's an opportunity to address something as opposed to pluck out someone's deficiency. If we do see gaps, then there is a lot of definition of our big components, so we can define what we need to build in order to operate integrated governance. There's a life cycle which talks about how you might go about this, and more of that a bit later. Links to some of our fellow professional bodies who have the expertise in all this stuff. And we do have some methods and models which you can use, which are specifically big, and they're available for folks to use as well. And I'll just let Jess in. So that's the intro. The key concepts. Again, some key language we commonly use, and some of us use it in different ways to others. So we try to define some terms, and again, just a whiz through, an introduction for you. But we like to talk about organization a common way. We talk about what purpose is and what vision is, mission and strategy, strategic plan, operating plan. These are all the entities that we refer to in integrated governance to allow us to get from our purpose through to how that's going to happen within the organization. We also use the language of a strategic process and the need for a strategy information model. So not many of the organizations I've spoken to about this are clear on what their strategy information model is. What is the backbone that gets them from the purpose statements to the vision picture to the strategic steps into sub-objectives, and how do we see that cascade? Is there the strategy information model is that coherent set of information which forms our strategic backbone and is behind everything we do as an organization. And if we have our strategy information model, then the idea is that we keep that up to date and we adapt it, we use it. We have an operating model for strategy. So rather than strategy being an annual one-off process or maybe a 3-year process that dictates to the business which direction it should go in, strategy is subject to an operating model which communicates down, which listens across, which respects innovation, and we have a more cadence-based dynamic approach to strategy delivery than a dictatorial one. And if we are clear on our organization, if we have that purpose, vision, strategy, line of sight, if we're able to cascade our objectives through the organization and we're able to operate to keep them relevant, we then need an operating model to help us balance across our organization to make sure that our business as usual, value creation and change workloads are all happening to support that. So there's our key concepts. Um, uh, the next section, principles. Well, our principles there were 80 of these when we started off, and this was in a time when we didn't have ChatGPT to crush it down into a small, simple number for us. So we had some debate and an argument and fun trying to make sense of this. But these are the ones that we think are important. Um, there are some related to strategy, some key ones. So, for example, can we speak to our colleagues and do we have consensus that strategy is necessary to achieve purpose? That's not always an obvious one. Some people think their organization is about business as usual and doesn't need a strategy. Strategy management is ongoing. Um, do people believe that strategy is a fire and forget exercise, or is it that dynamic thing I've just referred to? And the organization has structure. Are we clear on how we're going to get our strategic objectives cascaded? And are we clear on the innovation that's going to come back to us in response to that strategy, perhaps? So are these things clear? And if we ask our organizations, how well would they say that? How well would we say that we meet these needs? Moving on then. So two more. If the organization has structure, then is the governance that we put across it integrated, or in many cases is our governance isolated in little splashes? Um, do does governance facilitate our decision making, which underpins our strategy? Does governance help us balance across run and change, or is it very siloed? And if we are cascading our objectives for those people we make accountable, do we truly empower them with funding, leadership, time, and resources to actually carry out their accountability? For us, accountability is absolutely vital, is central to big, and this is a massive topic, hence it's identified as one piece. So for us, accountability underpins governance, and that is vital. But if we're to operate governance, then if we want that to be smooth, we need to have an operating model which we orchestrate to run governance with, like any good project or program, with effective governance on a project or program. Let's do it for strategy. And if we're going to have an orchestration engine, then we need a support infrastructure to make that happen. And if that's got a support infrastructure, it needs lifetime sponsorship. Um, Moving on, if we're going to operate governance systematically, we need to be systematic about the information that we use. We need to know where it comes from. We need to be confident in the data. And lastly, and the slide build has been rushing me along. If we're going to operate governance and we have good information, then we need to have an independent assurance checks and balances to make sure that this all works. So those are the key principles that underpin big, and I've color schemed them because each of the principles has underneath it some capability and components that enable us to make it happen. And so if we're talking to people about the principles, about their perception of how everything is working, we can then look to see what we need to build or check that we need to make sure is operating. So we've isolated the strategy information model and operating model as really important components. And then we have all the other big components, organization components, governance components, information and data, accountability, leadership of key components, as well as assurance and business support. And we need to use the big, we can use the big body of knowledge to help us define what, based on our understanding of concepts, appreciation of principles and gaps, we can understand what we need to build, and then dip into our professional colleagues and their expertise in strategy, governance, portfolio management, finance, whatever, to actually help us make the operating model that underpins how this all fits together. And without wanting to go into details, but just to flash it up, each of those components does actually have quite a bit to it. So again, I'm just signposting this. Please don't try and read it all. But underpinning each of the major components there, the body of knowledge does describe each of these elements in quite some detail. So we've understood the concepts. We appreciate that there are principles around integrated governance that will help us understand what appetite there is for change. We've related components to the principles, so we can start to identify, well, what do we need to build to operate? So in terms of that's what big really is. Key concepts, principles, components. Those are the major elements.